Okay, welcome back to part 2 of our color wheel mandala. So our aim here is to take the pattern and the 12 equal sections that we designed in the last video for our mandala and color paint, not just using markers, but we're going to paint and mix colors for our tertiary colors. Now let me go over, we got our primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. So these colors we cannot mix, okay? Primary colors just come as a pigment or an ink. This is what we're going to mix our other colors out of. Now, because we have so many of these, I'm going to cheat a little bit and I'm going to use paint that's already mixed for our secondary colors. So our secondary colors would be, if we had this here, it would be green. Green here. Orange is here. So if we mix red and yellow, we get orange, right? And then we'll put blue. I'm skipping one here. If we mix yellow and blue, we get green. And if we mix red and blue, we get purple. So these are our secondary colors. So if we mix these two primary colors, we get the secondary color of orange. If we mix these two primary colors, we get secondary color of green. And if we mix these two colors, we get secondary color of purple. Now we could mix our secondary colors, no biggie. But I'm gonna leave the mixing up to the tertiary colors. That's the red orange, the orange yellow, the yellow green, the green blue, the blue purple, the purple red. Okay, so also we're going to be doing a lot of mixing with tints. Now when we mix a tint, we mix white into it to make it lighter. And when we do a shade of a color, we're going to mix black into it, just a tiny bit, because black's a strong color. We're going to use a tiny bit of black to make shades of these colors as well. So the first thing I'm going to do before I start all of this off is I'm going to okay, so the way we're going to start this is we're going to label our primary colors first. So I'm going to pick one pie piece and just lightly put an R for red. Then I'm going to skip one. I'm going to put a little O for orange. I'm going to skip one, red, orange, yellow. I'm going to put a Y for yellow, and I'm going to skip one, and I'm going to put a G for green. And I'm going to skip one, and I'm going to put a B for blue, another primary color there. Skip one, and I'm going to put a P for purple, skip one, and I'm back to my red. So the first thing I'm going to do is paint in my primary color sections, okay? And I'm going to just use part of this pattern in my section for straight up red. So this is acrylic paint. You can also use tempera paint. We have that in school. I'm going to put a little dab in my tray. I'm actually going to set up each color for now, and I'm going to leave a little section next to that. And don't need a lot of paint, just a tiny little squirt. So when you're doing this, make sure you're just using a little at a time. It dries pretty quick. A little dab of yellow. I'm going to put a green next to that just so I don't mix it up. Green. And then I'll just do a blue and a purple next to each other. It's fine. Okay. So each one of these sections, like we labeled, so here's my red. I'm going to take my brush now you can use, I would use a small brush because I feel like it's not a big area. I think I might use this one, it's a little thicker. If you need any of these materials at your house, just email me, let me know, and I can make up a little art packet for you. I also have water. because I'm going to have to clean my brush in between each one of these colors. And I also have, just putting those paints away, a paper towel. But you can just use any type of paper towel that's lying around, or a rag to wipe your brush in. Okay, so starting with my red, I'm going to just get my brush a little bit wet, but you want the majority to be just straight up paint, or acrylic paint. Okay, so I'm going to wipe it on there. Now I'm just going to pick a few sections in this triangle to be straight up red. So I'm going to paint this section, and I'm only going to go up to my fold. Okay, now I will tell you that when I was doing my pattern, my folds again did not line up perfectly, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's more the concept of making a beautiful balanced mandala, and also learning how to mix my tertiary colors with tints and shades. And in the end, I think it's better if it looks a little more hand done and organic than some technical measured out piece of artwork. So just my style, I'm just gonna get a little water in there to make it a little more fluid. My style is, do the best you can, try all the parts, all the processes, and then it is what it is, It's a little messy, a little more organic, that's okay. When I'm illustrating for people, I don't worry about things looking perfect. My style is more quirky and weird and kind of fluid, and I feel like that gives art personality. So just stick with that. Stick whatever your style is. If you're more of a technical person, like when we were doing 2-point perspective, and you really jive with that, and you love measuring things out, then by all means, measure your triangle with a ruler, start with a square piece of paper, measure every single point when you divide those cross lines. All right, so here's my red. I'm also gonna do a little section down here, just straight up bright red. I'm gonna leave some of the other sections in that triangle for my tints and for my shades. All right. So there we go. Perfecto. Not really, but that's okay. All right. So I just, before I paint on this, I know this is my red now because I painted red. I'm just going to erase that little R, because once I paint over it, you can't really erase it. Unless you paint a dark color, then you won't see it. All right. I think that's how I want it. This will be a shade. That'll be a tint. That'll be a shade. Maybe I'll make the triangle red too. I really like this acrylic paint. It's nice and bright, fluid, smooth. And again, don't feel like you have to be super perfect with your lines. Just have fun painting. This is literally a preparation so that we can just make any painting we want, because we'll know how to mix all the right colors that we want, that we have in our head. Or if we're landscape painting and you see green on the horizon, you know exactly how to mix that style of green. All right, so this is more of a prep project to prep you for painting anything you want and any color you want. Okay, so now notice I'm gonna really rinse my brush here. Right, I'm really I'm not crushing the brush hairs, but I'm really rinsing it out, and then I'm gonna really wipe it on this paper towel. Now I'm going to add a little bit of white to make a tint. Okay, so this is actually a mixing white. I am going to, I feel like I like to do white here and add red. It's going to kind of be a pinkish color because I feel like I have a lot of red in there. So because white is so easily changed, I'm going to kind of pick up some of this red and mix it. That way you have more control over how dark it gets. If you just start putting white straight into your red paint, guarantee the red or any bold bright color is just gonna suck up that white. All right, so there's my tint of red. It's kind of a pinkish color. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick some other sections in my red triangle to do my tint. So I think, and you don't wanna do the tints or the bright reds or the shades next to each other, because you wanna be able to see the contrast of the shade versus the hue versus the tint. So this is a tint. Okay, I'm gonna go in and do this right up against my fold. I'm running out of paint, so make sure that you reload your brush with paint. Okay. But you don't want it too blobby because then you can't really control where it's going. So it's somewhere in between. You'll get used to it. After you're like third or fourth triangle, you'll know exactly how much paint you need on the brush that you have. Now it's important to also clean your brush when you're done. Just don't leave it on your napkin or in your paint. And also clean your paint tray, because it is a pain to get that paint off of your tray once it's hardened. People peel it off sometimes, but that doesn't always work. So make sure that you clean your tray. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna do this part, a tint. And then I'm gonna do this part, and that little triangle part at the end, a shade with some black. So it'll be like a deep dark red. All right. Okay, so I am now mixing the shades of my primary and secondary colors. The way I'm gonna do that is I've made a fresh little squirt of each one of my colors, primary and secondary. I put my black in the middle because it's a very strong color, and I'm just gonna add the tiniest bit of black and mix it. So I'm starting with green. I mix just a dab of black into my green. You'll see it turn a nice deep forest dark green. And I'm gonna fill in the remaining shapes in my green pie section with my dark shade of green. When it's a shade, that means you're adding black. All right, if it's the straight up color, that's the hue. And if you're adding white, that's a tint, okay? So that's also something that's good to know for graphic design. When you're printing, when you're doing web colors, you'll see in the palette in Adobe, they have shades and they have tints, and they also have opacity and transparency, which is if you can see through it. Is it translucent or is it opaque? That's one thing I'm noticing about this paint, is it's a little translucent. I wish it was a little more opaque. Hopefully by adding black, at least my shades will be nice and dark. If you had time, I might go back and repaint some of these blacks so I don't see the white of the paper through it. I'm not crazy about that. I wish it was a little richer. Okay, and I'm gonna paint just half of this organic shape because there's my fold line. So I wanna make sure that I'm gonna save these empty pie shapes for my tertiary colors. So this one's gonna be blue-green in between, and I'm gonna do tints and shades of blue-green. All right, so mixing that in there. Here we go. All right. And I'm gonna take from my dark green one more time just for this center piece. Now, I have another brush that's a little smaller. I think for this centerpiece, I'm gonna go down to a smaller brush size just because it's like a tiny little triangle and I don't want it to look messy. My smaller brush. All right, I have more control over it because the tip is a little more pointy. And I want my star shape to really look good and for you to be able to see the transition of color. All right, so I got all my shades, my tints, and my hues in this one finished. Now I'm gonna go to, let's do orange just because it's next on my palette here. Okay, so as you can see, I finished with my shades on my primary and secondary colors, and now I started my tertiary colors, which are the in-between pie shapes that we left blank. So I kind of got carried away here. I'm going to show you what I'm doing. Again, I'm leaving my shades on these to mix last because the black is so powerful that it takes over my brush and the colors, so I'm going to wait till the end to do the shades for these. I'm kind of saving my colors. So the way you're going to do your tertiary colors is it's pretty basic. For between my yellow and my green, because yellow is such a light color, I'm just going to take a little bit of green, mix it in there to make a nice lime green. All right, so when I mix that, I'm liking this greenish color here. All right, that looks good to me. So with the green, you don't need a lot, the yellow and the green, because yeah, the yellow is so light. So I have been taking the same as I did my red and my orange and my green, where I just did the basic hue. I'm gonna again do my tertiary color basic hue. Okay, and then when I do my tints, I'm gonna fill in the same spots as the other triangles with my tints, but I'm gonna take this color and add a little bit of white. Okay, so let me show you. Pick this up. Now, I wish that this paint was a little bit more opaque. I'm kind of getting it nice and thick on there because I don't like seeing the paper through there. All right, I'm trying to be neat about the edges, but I will Sharpie the edges later, so it's okay if they're a little soft. All right, and just there, I know that's going to be a darker green, so I don't have to worry. I went over there a little bit. All right, so taking my mixed color, now let's see, that, and this. So that's going to be just my basic lime green hue. No shade, no tint yet. All right, so I'm filling that in. All right, and then the last thing that I have is a basic here, my triangle. Yesterday I got a little blue on the edge of this. Hoping that my dark green, actually that's going to be a tint up there, so I might put a little white paint on there for it to dry. Or a little white out tomorrow. All right. Okay, so I got my three basic hues, my three basic shapes with my basic greenish lime green hues, yellow, green. All right, so now to do the tint, same as we did before, only I'm gonna, on my palette, I'm gonna add it here, just a little dot of white, because it's not a lot of space I need. I don't wanna waste too much paint. All right, and I'm gonna, because the white absorbs the color so easily, same thing, I'm just gonna take a little of this. Notice I didn't put the white directly in there because it's just gonna like disappear in there. So this way I can slowly scoop some and keep adding it until I'm happy with the color. This looks pretty good to me. This like super light lime color. All right, so now I'm gonna paint this spot and this spot. Okay, so I finished all of my primary colors with their shades and tints. Then I went to my secondary colors with their shades and tints. And then I finished the tertiary colors, which is combining the secondary colors, or the colors that I left in between, the pie slices of every primary and secondary color. And I finished their tints, but not their shades. The only part left I have to do are the shades. So now that I have all these colors mixed, I'm not going to do anything with my tints. I'm going to go back to my tertiary colors, the original hues that I mixed on the edge. And I'm going to put the tiniest bit of black in the middle of his palette. All right? Because I don't want to overpower what I mixed. Okay, so let's see. I am gonna do, first I'm just gonna mix up, this lime green has a little white in it, so I'm just gonna mix it up, make sure it's good, maybe put a little more green in there. Okay, that was my yellow lime green, my yellow green. So that would be this one, and now that I'm back to my original hue, the one here, I'm gonna add the tiniest bit of black, because it's really gonna take it over. Okay, and I don't have a lot I have to paint, so I don't have to worry about like remixing up a big batch of this color, but there we go. That's a shade of my tertiary color yellow green. So I'm gonna paint that here. And again, don't worry if it's not perfect. You can always outline it later with a thin Sharpie. I can have a more painterly look. I'm totally cool with that. And because mine does. Alright. And I'm just really wiping my brush so I can get like a fine edge on my brush to get this little floral detail. Instead of switching to my smaller brush, which I probably should do. But alright, so I got that tint and this tint. There we go. All right, and the last tint that I need to do is right in that corner that I am gonna switch to my small brush because it's just super small. Okay. I feel like it's not dark enough. I'm gonna grab a little black and mix it in. I feel like it's too close to my original hue there. There we go. Exactly what I want. Okay, artists. So the mandala is finished. I finished my primary colors, secondary colors, tertiary colors, all the tints, all the shades. So now the last part, which is kind of fun, I'm gonna take a fine point Sharpie and I'm gonna outline all the edges to clean it up so you don't see the pencil. You don't have to do that, but I think it gives it a nice clean look. Even if your painting style is a little more fluid and not as technical, the Sharpie kind of brings it all together. You can choose to mount this on a cardboard if you want to hang it up, or you can just keep it on paper. Thanks so much for doing this project with me, and I can't wait to see your mandalas.